Welcome to Coach World TV. My name is Terry Yoffe, and tonight as my guest, I have Mary Jo Romeo. Hi, Mary Jo.
Hello, Terry.
How are you?
I'm terrific. Happy to be here.
Great. Mary Jo is not only a colleague of mine, but a friend of mine. I've known Mary Jo quite a while, and I was so thrilled when she offered to take me up on coming and being on my TV show. So Mary Jo is a media executive with over 20 years experience in the digital, integrated, and print world. Did I say it right?
Yes, perfect.
Great. So 20 years is enough of a time frame to really get a feel for how has the landscape changed in the media world to the digital integrated marketing world.
Sure. It's actually been over 20 years. The media industry has changed dramatically. It's insane, and it's changed mostly because of the internet, which has changed so many industries.
Right.
I mean, it
Absolutely.
is incredible. In the media world, the internet it changed everything 10, 15 years ago, but it's changing everything daily. I mean, I was a magazine publisher for many years for a variety of titles.
Right.
And magazines are great, but they're very stable. You know, the biggest thing you worry about is your paper costs go up.
Your circulation.
Your circulation goes up and down.
Right,
What's happening with the post office?
Right.
Advertisers are
Right.
pretty stable year after year, and your increases in them in terms of revenue, they're 2%, 3%, 5%. Digital is changing. It was funny when I went into the digital world.
And how long ago was that you went
About
into
6
digital?
years ago. 6 years ago, I went into the digital world, and I had lunch with a very good friend in the industry, and I said to him, "I'm panicked. I'm a print girl. I'm a magazine person.
Right.
How am I going to do this digital thing?" I said, "There's been, it's so different." And he looked at me and goes, "Mary Jo, all you need to know is what happened in the last month or two." Because it is changing at such a pace. If you think about 6 years ago or even a year ago, everything's changed.
And I also come out of magazine publishing. I left the magazine world in '97.
Okay.
And did not know, we did some integrated marketing, but we didn't have digital back then, and had my own rep company for a while, and then I segued into becoming a coach. So for me, that whole world has truly changed 180 degrees. And even though people say, what's going to happen to print? What's going to happen to print? Is it going to be around? Digital has taken over. What's the feeling about that comment?
I think it's not about print or digital or TV or out of home. It is really about engaging with your consumer. And where are you finding your consumer, and how are you communicating and engaging with her or him? So print is always going to exist. TV is always going to exist. It's not going to go away.
Right, exactly.
Digital is so interesting. It's such a shifter because there's publishing sites and there's community sites and what's happening with social media and how brands are engaging with consumers through social media channels. That's what's so interesting to me. But print is not going away. TV is not going away. Out of home is not going away. It's just a matter of, for brands, it's finding out where your consumers are, and then how do you engage with them.
Right. So it's taking print and just moving it to another level of including many different legs for it.
Right. It's incorporating it.
Right.
It's about the full picture, and it is really about engaging that consumer. So print can help you do that in some very interesting ways, but what everybody loves about digital, everybody loves about it, it's so measurable. You can't measure print in the way that you can measure a digital campaign.
So I'm sorry.
Go
That's
ahead.
all right. Tell us a little bit about what you mean by digital and how integrated marketing comes into all of this, for those that might not know enough about it.
So when you think about digital, people say, okay, it's online, and it's so much more than that, because it's also anything you do with your phone.
Right.
So the mobile area is growing quite dramatically.
Right, that I've heard.
Video is very, very hot. whether you're talking about YouTube or video on sites. So video is a very big area. Social media.
Okay.
So Facebook, of course,
Right.
with their public offering last week,
Right.
is very big. But there's a lot of other social media sites out there that people
Right.
are engaging in.
Right.
So it's the conversations that people are having digitally. So it's all of those things and more.
And where do you find that, obviously I'm just going back to my
Sure.
own print days where that was it. You got your advertising dollars into print, and then you created platforms to go along with that, events, opportunities, whatever. And it, by today's standard, is a very narrow approach. Now, if you look at the picture, it's,
Very different.
so if people buy print, does that mean it rolls over as well into they expect, what else are you going to give me?
So print is primarily sold, as you just said,
Right.
with what else you're going to give me,
Right.
the value
Okay.
add. Okay, that's still a very, very important part of the print sale. And I think that will always be a part of the print sale. So you're buying the brand in
Right.
the magazine,
Right.
you're getting the page in the magazine, and then you're getting other stuff, whether it's an event or online exposure,
Okay.
whatever. The biggest difference between print and digital is that when you sell a page in a magazine, one ad page, you're done.
Right.
You're basically done. The
where it
worst
is.
that happens is you have a red streak on the ad, or the ad's upside down, which I've never heard actually ever happening. But
Right,
that's
right,
really
right.
the worst. In
Exactly.
digital, you get the revenue from the client based on a certain amount of delivery of a campaign. And then you have to do it. You have to deliver for that advertiser. And they measure everything. They measure
So how do they measure
metrics.
metrics?
They do research, click-through rates, which are sort of antiquated, but research, a lot of research. I'm talking to a company now that is very into managing the content, getting the content out there through social media, pulling the content in, and then analyzing the content and giving that feedback back to the marketer.
Right.
So digital is just very, very sophisticated. Plus, you can find people on any site USA. It's very complicated, but there's just
It
tons of
certainly
research.
sounds
There's
like
tons
that.
of technology plays, and there's always new companies being launched every minute. It feels like that has a new technology that would do
Right.
X, Y, or Z.
I mean, what I'm finding or listening to or hearing is there's such a plethora of small companies out there that are all digital.
Startups.
Right, startups.
Everybody wants to be
Right,
the next Facebook.
Right, exactly.
Which is fine.
So what do you think happens to these startups? How many of them actually survive in the world? You hear about, and you've certainly been involved with a number of startups,
right.
which is to your credit.
One of the things one of the stats that I heard, and I don't know if this is 100% accurate, so please don't quote me, but this is what I heard, that for every 10 startups that get funding, that get funding from venture capitalists, that every 10 startups, 3 will sort of make it. That means of those 3, 2 will actually get the money back, and 1 will make money, and the other 7 will lose money.
Wow.
So not great odds. And that's the ones that get
No.
the funding.
Right, right.
So the digital world's interesting. The digital world is very much an industry in transition, and I think the media industry is an industry in transition.
Okay, you want to elaborate a little on that?
Well, I think, in the old days, and I'm not going back to 1997, Terry, but in the old days, people didn't change jobs the way they do now. There is just
Okay, so-
enormous transition that takes place.
Okay.
I heard from a recruiter the other day something that kind of shocked me. So recruiters, if they place somebody, they generally get have a 90-day window. So you
Right.
put somebody in a job for 90 days,
Right.
and if that person leaves before the 90 days is up, the recruiter has to give that company a make good.
Does that mean a
So
new person?
a new person, right?
Okay.
Okay. What this recruiter told me is that companies have such a short window where to make money. It's so critical that they move really, really, really fast that she's placing people, and they're being let go before the 90 days are up.
Is that so they don't have to
It's either
pay?
it's 2 things, I think. One is the speed at which they expect a return on their investment, number 1.
Okay.
And number 2 is partly that they don't have to pay the recruiter.
But then the recruiter has to do a make good and
Right.
bring in somebody
Right.
else. So once that person's in place and they stay the 90 days, then they'll get paid. Is that right?
Right. They get paid, but they
Right.
have to give a make good if the person leaves before 3 months are up. It's crazy. It's really, it's very exciting. On the one hand, it's incredibly exciting, and it's very, very fast paced. But it is.
But
It's crazy.
fast paced, 3 months. I mean,
I know.
There's got to be, and I'm probably dating myself, but there's got to be a grace period where somebody has a learning curve for where they are.
I think it's shrinking. I think that's why people need coaches.
Thank you.
But seriously, I think that it is shrinking. And when you interview with a company, you have to be very, very careful about getting a culture that makes sense for you, that
Right,
you
absolutely.
that you feel that fit.
Right.
But you also have to remain flexible, because that company can get swallowed up by somebody else. There can be other changes that occur. You can't control it, so you have to roll with it.
Right. What's the expression? Change is the new norm.
Yes,
But it's moving so quickly.
it is.
I
It's
mean,
it's exciting.
I think it could be exciting, but I can also see it being a little unnerving.
Yeah. It's not for the faint-hearted, that's for sure.
And I will get to transition in a second, but I see that fast pace for younger people where they're ready to rock and roll and they're ready to get started. But then you come to the Gen X's or the baby boomers where they're kind of in the middle, and they may not want such a fast pace environment to happen.
I think the millennials are great. It's such a great group. They're so digitally savvy. They're so tech savvy.
They grew up with that.
They grew
in a
up
lot
with
of
it, and the
ways.
way they think and how nimble they are, and that they could pretty much do anything is digitally, which is it's very cool to be a part of that. What's
Older people have a disadvantage, I think.
but you do that reverse mentoring. You do what the skills that you have and the experience that you have has such value to these younger people, and the smart ones will recognize that, and there's that trade-off. You would hope, right?
It does. You go back to the .com day when all these young kids who knew nothing went from the bottom rung to the top rung in a nanosecond, and then crashed because they had no clue.
But
And-
look at Facebook. I mean, what was it, $16 billion?
Well,
So.
yeah, Facebook. I think Mark Zuckerberg is kind of, the today's version of Bill Gates in a way. One person like that comes along every so often.
That's true. But the medium, the technology, the digital medium is really affording young people. I mean, there's been a lot written about this. Guys are getting out of Harvard and they want to start their own business.
Sure.
20 years ago they wanted to work for IBM.
Right.
So or GE.
Exactly. Right.
There's been
The traditional
yeah.
type companies, or become lawyers,
Right.
or whatever it was
Right.
back then, getting out of Harvard.
So.
But today is just a different spin.
It's exciting.
It is exciting. So.